this is the first something that we will do. I don't know, maybe once every blue moon if you guys want it. But if you wanted a little more, maybe just ask. Why wait for the morning of June 11th to occur when we can do this now and get it over with? How do you like them apples? Hey there, peeps, attend. Ooh, here. Can I be heard very clearly? Because if not, then I'm gonna have to adjust for everything. And this sucks. No. Don't tell anybody, but I'm doing this because I want to. And this will be the first time everything is in silence. Because maybe, just maybe, if you guys fall asleep while listening to this, my views will go up. So it's actually more beneficial to do this than to not do it. Anyways, if you guys read the description, don't tell Mama that I'm doing this, because she will be very, very angry if she ever finds out. But with that being said, I'm very excited for this tournament. As you know, every 4 years the World Cup comes, and it's probably the most viewed tournament of pretty much any tournament they can ever think of. Because soccer is probably the easiest sport to get into, but it's also the most passionate one for so many countries. And you're about to see it here in less than 13 hours. I don't expect the stream to be very long. All I'm gonna do is predict the entire World Cup. As you can see on these match days, all of these different groups, all of these different matches, and we're gonna go through each stage until we crown a winner. First, let me tell you how this works. We start off with the group stage, where each team plays each of the other teams once in their group. For example, for the U.S. case, they play Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey. And how this works, the top 2 teams in each group, from A all the way down to L, will reach the knockout stage. And as you see, some of these third place teams are written in light blue. The top 8 teams, the top 8 third placers, also reach the knockout stage to make 32 teams. And once we reach the knockout stage, it is a single elimination bracket until we crown a winner. So let's get started so we don't waste any more time. How the group stage works in terms of standing: each win you receive in the group stage gives you 3 points. A draw gives you 1, a loss gets you 0. Tiebreakers, because there most certainly will be ties in the group stage among groups, and third place finishers. This is why I have to do it this way. Goal differential is such a big deal in the group stage. It doesn't matter how many wins you pick up or how many points, but how you got those points. Did you destroy opponents? Were they close? Were you getting manhandled but got lucky? That's where goal differential comes in. If two teams have the same amount of points, the first tiebreaker is goal differential. After that, it's the goals scored for your country. For example, let's just say Mexico, South Africa each have a goal differential of, or they each have 4 points, and each have a goal differential of +1. The goal differential. Goal differential will be only the tiebreaker in this scenario will be, let's just say Mexico scored 2 goals to 1, South Africa 1 to nothing. Mexico would hold the tiebreaker because they scored more goals. That's how tiebreakers work. And so, and then if they're still tied after that, fair play points come into play. And that's based on points, negative points. Whoever has the lowest amount of points is eliminated. I believe it is -1 for yellow cards, -4 for red or direct red cards. And then a yellow card, 2 straight yellow cards leading to a red card gives you -5. So it doesn't really matter in this scenario because I'm pretty sure for every prediction I'm going to make, they're all going to be broken by at least the second tiebreaker. So hopefully it shouldn't matter at the very end. But let's get through this as quick as we can. Let me say hi to the chat. Hello Gideon, hello Bendy, hello Blazing, hello Lacey. How are you all doing on this fine Wednesday night? But anyways, let's get right to the first game. Right to the first group. Where we have Mexico, South Africa, South Korea, and the Czech Republic. So, this is considered a group of life in the group stage. All 4 of these teams definitely have a very, very real possibility of going going to the knockout stage, but they also have a really good shot at just getting grouped all together. It's not necessarily the strongest group in this setting, but there is one distinct thing, in my opinion, that these two teams that separates one single team from everybody else, and it's the fact that Mexico is a host of this tournament, and the Mexican home environment is, oh my god, it is incredible. Don't kick on staying up too late. Oh, don't worry. Mama Lynx is probably falling fast asleep. She won't notice. But anyways, Mexico has a massive home advantage with all 3 of their games being played in Mexico. And the best part is if they win their group, they are guaranteed home games all the way through the round of 16 in the knockout stages, which might be huge for later games and potentially picking upsets. So, South Africa, they, I think, last appeared in 2010 when they hosted the tournament. I don't think they made it in 2014. They didn't make it for certain in 2018 and 2022, but this side actually beat out Nigeria in the African group stage, the African qualifiers in their group to qualify for the tournament, which was a shocker. But Africa's been, it's a little bit of a downgrade from what I've heard of how their friendlies are going. So it is not exactly great for them so far in terms of momentum. Which going in their first game, this is the opening game for them against Mexico. It's probably not that. Probably might get lit up a little bit. South Korea. This team actually made a pretty damn good run in 2002 when they hosted the tournament along with Japan. But they have been known to play spoiler at this tournament specifically. So South Korea is a team you gotta keep an eye out for. The Czech Republic, they made it to this tournament through the final stretch of European qualifiers, in which they outlasted teams such as Denmark to make it here. Denmark was probably the favorites when the draw happened to reach this stage. They beat out Ireland initially, and then I believe they beat Denmark. I gotta make sure that's right. They did beat Denmark. But this team has grit, and you cannot underestimate them at this tournament. So, with that being said, this is why I have to predict scores. This is soccer, correct? Yes. The internationals, or anyone outside the US, will probably call it football, because that's technically the proper term. But here's my argument for that. The same people who call it football also invented the term soccer. So, anyways, the match day 1 is these first two. Match day 2 is the second two, and then match day 3 is these last two. And then once I put in the scores, I will calculate them and it'll give us the result. We'll look at third place teams later on and see how they do. And we'll also see them down on this side. But anyways, Mexico versus South Africa. You'll be catching this in just over 12 hours from now. So, I think Mexico, with the home environment, they've also been playing very well in their friendlies. I know you can only take friendlies so seriously because a lot of teams, especially the big ones, will be resting starters, not playing the hardest, but you gotta respect the grit that some of these teams put out there. Mexico, I think, takes this early game 3-1. I think South Africa's not gonna get shut out in the first game, but who knows? South Korea versus the Czech Republic, I could see this easily being a draw, but I think I'm gonna you know what? I'll favor a draw here. I'll go 1-1. Next game is the Czech Republic versus South Africa. I think South Africa's going to be looking for a bounce back. The Czech Republic are going to be looking to pull through. I think the Czechs do with a late 2-1 victory. Mexico versus South Korea. I could see either of these teams pulling off a win here, but I think Mexico is also going to pull off a victory. I'm going to go 2-0 on that one. The Czech Republic versus Mexico. Now, as you can see, real quick, Mexico is sitting with 6 points. The Czech Republic right now has 4. South Korea has 1 and South Africa has 0. Why is this important? Because in this final stretch, this final match day, both of these every single groups A, D, B, C, D, they'll have both of their final games be playing at the same time. Reason being, we don't want teams just sitting by doing nothing like the second game doesn't matter. So we want these games to matter as much as possible. That's why they're both played at the same time. So Mexico will already have punched their spot into the knockout stage, but they still want to be able to punt. They still want to capture first. However, I don't think they're going to full on sweep them. So I'm going to say this is a 1-1 draw. And then South Africa versus South Korea. Oh boy. Oh man. I think, you know what? I'll label this also as a 1-1 draw. I don't think South Africa's going to go through this entire tournament just with getting absolutely annihilated and going 0 for 3. But it's going to be so hard for them to pick up points in this. So let's calculate. As you can see, Mexico wins the group with 7 points and a good 4-point goal differential. Czech Republic finishes second and will also go to the knockout stages. Unfortunately, though, South Korea, 2 points is probably not going to be good enough to get in as one of the top 8 third-place teams. In this day and age, I think you have to have at least probably 3 points to stand a chance. So I don't think 2 points is going to be good enough for South Korea, and then South Africa, by default, as the last place, is not going to qualify for the next round. Let's move on to Group B. Group B consists of Canada, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Qatar, and Switzerland. Canada is another of the 3 hosts at this tournament. The Canadians, they have yet to pick up a single win at this tournament through 2 appearances. They made their most recent appearance 4 years ago in Qatar, where they finished with 0 points. But they have looked a lot better and have been improved since that tournament. Bosnia-Herzegovina was another team, just like the Czech Republic, that needed to go through the March second round of the UEFA playoffs, where they beat, I forgot who they played in their first matchup, but the second one, they managed to knock off Italy, and the 4-time World Cup champions, to make it to the World Cup. And their grand prize is playing Canada in their first game, Switzerland in the second, and Qatar in the third. Speaking of Qatar, they have basically, this is their first ever appearance where they managed to qualify through the qualifying process. The last tournament they played in was last year, which they made a debut, but they only debuted because they were hosting the tournament. So we'll see how far they go around this time around. They struggled last tournament, and honestly, I don't think they're going to be much better in this one. Switzerland are the big favorites in this one. The European side has been fairly consistent at the World Cup, and they've definitely given some of the big dogs, especially in Europe, a good run for their money. So let's predict this group. Have to wake up early tomorrow, take care of everyone. Yeah, if you guys need to go to bed, go to bed. I don't imagine this stream's gonna have a lot of views anyway. I just want to do this for fun. But let's pick this group. First up is Canada versus Bosnia and Herzegovina. This is gonna be a really tough game. I don't think either side's gonna pick up a win though. I am gonna say it's a bit of a high scoring one. I'm gonna go with the 2-2 draw. This next game, oh boy, Qatar versus Switzerland. What a brutal opener for Qatar. I think it's going to be a 4-0 win for Switzerland in their opening matchup. Switzerland versus Bosnia-Herzegovina. I would not be surprised if Bosnia gives Switzerland a good run for the money early on, but I think later on, Switzerland's going to pick up a big 2-1 win. Canada versus Qatar. Now, a lot of people are saying Canada is going to easily beat Qatar and pick up their first win of the tournament. And honestly, I could see that. However, this tournament is known for having major upsets and a lot of unexpected results. And I think one of them is going to be that Canada and Qatar both draw. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw for Canada and Qatar. I think Qatar picks up the first ever point with tying Canada, and then Switzerland against Canada. It's going to be a 1-0 victory for. It's gonna be a 1-0 victory for Switzerland. It's gonna be tight. Canada's gonna be playing tough, but I think Switzerland is gonna be able to pull it out in the end and clean sweep the group. And then Bosnia and Herzegovina are gonna have a heyday with Qatar, and playing comes 3-0. Hello, Nick. How you doing? So let's calculate this real quick. So once again, we have Switzerland with 9 points, sweeping the group stage easily. Bosnia-Herzegovina finishing in second with 4 points. Canada with 2, and Qatar with just the 1 singular point. I think if Canada, I just don't buy into the hype. I think They because we had this talk last tournament with Canada finishing first in the final round of CONCACAF qualifying, yet they still got obliterated in the group stage. Yes, I know they had to face Belgium, Croatia, and Morocco, but I mean, Qatar's probably the easiest one. Yet, I think Qatar slightly improves from the last tournament. Not very much, but just enough to give Canada to destroy Canadian hopes and dreams. Again, 2 points is probably not going to be good enough to be top three. So Switzerland, Bosnia Herzegovina are probably the only two teams that get out of the group stage from this group. Next, we have Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. Brazil, this is the one everyone knows. 5-time world champs, the most in FIFA in World Cup history. Probably the most prestigious team on the planet. Enough said about Brazil. Morocco, they made noise last tournament as the only African nation to make it to the semifinals. The first team to make it from Africa to the semifinals. And they had the world on their backs, and they've only gotten better. Expect big things from Morocco. Actually, there are 3 African teams you need to watch out for in this tournament. Morocco is one of them. I'll get to the other 2 when we get there. Haiti, 52 years was the last time they made an appearance at the World Cup. That country has been going through hell and back. And this, just being here, should be a massive, massive win for Haiti. If they can pick up a point, that's just a bonus. And then Scotland, they managed to top the group with Denmark in it, who missed the tournament but is still regularly one of the better European clubs, or better European squads in UEFA. So big props to Scotland as well. Now, let's get to predicting. Brazil versus Morocco. Oh boy. I think something shocking is going to happen in this tournament because Brazil is just does not look as strong as they've always have. They're still going to be really dangerous. Don't get me wrong. But don't be surprised if this ends in a draw. And I think it is. I think it's actually going to be a scoreless draw. Defenses are going to show up in this game. Not a whole lot of offense. Haiti versus Scotland. I think Scotland picks up a narrow 1-0 victory over Haiti. Scotland versus Morocco. This is where Morocco picks up their first win. And Brazil versus Haiti. I'm sorry, but we gotta have a rout at some point in this tournament. 5-0 Brazil. Scotland versus Brazil. This actually looks like it's gonna be a lot tighter of a game than people think, but I think I am gonna give it a 2-2 draw. No, not 2-2 draw. A 3-2 victory for Brazil. It's gonna be tight, but it's gonna be epic. And then Morocco versus Haiti. I'm gonna say it's a 3-0 win. No, not 3-9. 3-0 win for Morocco. That should put Brazil in first and Morocco in second, with Scotland in third and Haiti in fourth. And just like that, Brazil and Morocco tied for first with 7 points, but Brazil finishes first with a +6 goal differential. Morocco with a +4. Scotland has 3, and Haiti has 0. I wouldn't be surprised if Haiti picked up a point against Scotland, but I think outside of that, there's just not much hope for Haiti at this tournament. They got a really, really difficult group, and I think Scotland actually might be one of the teams, the third place teams that actually goes to the knockout stage, but we'll see how that looks up later. Group D features the United States of America, Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey. The US, oh boy. It looked like early on that this team might struggle in this tournament, but lately the friendlies, while like I said, take it with a grain of salt. Those friendly results, they did beat Senegal, one of the tougher African nations, and they actually really played well against Germany despite falling 2-1. So watch out for the US at this tournament. Paraguay is a very sneaky, dangerous South American team, but I think, in my opinion, they're just slightly the worst team in this group. And this group is another group of life. Anyone can come out on top, anyone can finish at the bottom. Australia is probably one of the biggest dark horses at this tournament. I feel like this team could go far, but they also could flop tremendously. And Turkey, one of those teams again from the UEFA March qualifiers that had to go through that, but they managed to get past everything. And they're probably the most. Them and the US are probably the slight favorites to win this group. But we'll see how this plays out. Group D starts off with the US playing Paraguay. And I think the US takes care of business with a 3-1 win in LA. Australia versus Turkey. I think Turkey is gonna Turkey, oh, Jesus Christ, not 21. 2-1 victory for Turkey in against Australia. The US will also beat Australia, but it's gonna be a very, very tight 1-0 win. A 1-0 victory for the United States. Turkey versus Paraguay. I think it's gonna be 2-0 Turkey. And then, oh boy, I think this game ends in a draw. I think I'm going to settle for a 1-1 draw between Turkey and the US. Paraguay versus Australia, I think it's also going to finish in a draw. I think it's going to go a 0-0 draw. So, let's calculate the results. So, this is interesting. So, both Turkey and the US finish with the same amount of points, the same amount of goal differentials, and the same amount of goals for. However, just to see, this simulator does not take into account the fair play points. So, I think I'm going to just add another goal for the US against Australia. It's not going to matter at the end of the day, because I really do think the US is going to be more disciplined to Turkey throughout, and it's just going to be probably something like that determines it. Plus, I think the US is more likely to get a bigger victory over Australia than Turkey is over Paraguay. So, I think US finishes first, Turkey finishes second. They both advance to the knockout stages. I have to differentiate which one finishes first and second, because that determines who their opponent are during the knockout stage. Australia, probably with 1 point is not going to be enough. And Paraguay also with 1 point, just not going to be enough to go to the knockouts. Group E. So up next, and that features Germany, Curacao, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ecuador. And Cote d'Ivoire, just basically the Ivory Coast. So that's what I'm probably going to call them from now on, because I'm not going to say Cote d'Ivoire every single damn time. But I will say Ecuador and Curacao. Germany. They looked probably the best they have since they won the World Cup in 2014. Yes, they have gotten grouped in the past two tournaments, but they're a pretty damn dangerous team. Curacao, the smallest nation by population to ever make it to the World Cup, and they just got a very, very nasty group, so not expecting much from them. The Ivory Coast is probably the most dangerous African team in the tournament, in my opinion. They are incredibly dangerous. So, I would not be surprised if they do make noise in this tournament. In Ecuador, looking for more redemption after getting grouped in the previous tournament, I think they look even better in this tournament. So I wouldn't be surprised if these three teams, Ecuador, Germany, and the Ivory Coast, all make it to the knockouts. Let's start with Germany. Curacao, I think it's going to be easy 4-0 victory for Germany. The Ivory Coast, I think, actually beats Ecuador in this one 2-1. And then here's the first major upset of the tournament. 2-1 Ivory Coast over Germany. It's going to be massive. And then I think Ecuador is actually going to get a 2-0 victory over Curacao. Ecuador and Germany, I think, are going to get into a 1-1 draw. And then Curacao picks up their first ever goal, but the Ivory Coast still wins 4-1. So that puts the Ivory Coast at first place, winning all 3 games at 9 points. That's my big dark horse. I think Ivory Coast actually has a chance to make noise in this tournament. Germany finishes second with 4 points, but with a +3 goal differential. Ecuador also finishes with 4 with a +1 goal differential. And that means, because that's the most of any third place team we've seen so far, Ecuador is going to the knockout stages. And then obviously Curacao just getting blanked. At least they picked up their first ever World Cup goal. Next is the Group F, featuring the Netherlands, Japan, Sweden, and Tunisia. Netherlands, probably the big favorite to win this group. Heavy European powerhouses, made it all the way. The furthest they ever got was the finals, where they lost to Spain in 2010. Japan, probably the biggest Asian dark horse at the tournament. They have the potential to make a lot of noise. Sweden is the final UEFA team that had to make it here through the March things. So they actually made it here by not even scoring, or not even picking up a single win in the group stage, but still making it through the Nations League rankings, where they managed to easily take through their bracket and get to this point. Tunisia, infamous, so many tournaments made, but have yet to reach the knockouts, so we'll see how things go. The Netherlands and Japan, I actually think it's going to be really close, but I'm going to go with a 2-1 win. Sweden and Tunisia, I actually think it's going to be scoreless draw. Netherlands and Sweden, I'm going to go with a 2-0 win for the Netherlands. Tunisia and Japan, I'm actually going to go upset here. Japan, it's beat by gets beat by Tunisia, but then Tunisia turns around and gets demolished by the Netherlands, and then Japan picks up a 2-1 win over Sweden. So let's see how that works out. I think the Netherlands easily takes over the group. However, these 3 are kind of really all, in my mind, closer than people think that they are. I actually think Tunisia could end up in 3rd as well, but my idea has them in second, scoreline wise, puts them in 2nd, which automatically puts them through. And I think Japan also has a shot of going. I know Canada who has had 3 points. There was someone that had 3. Oh, Scotland had 3, but they have more goals than Japan does. But so right now, Ecuador is through, and Scotland is through to the knockouts, and most likely Japan's going to be alongside them. Group G features Belgium, Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand. The latter 3 have never made it to the knockouts. Belgium underperformed severely at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, and they got grouped, shockingly. I don't think that's going to happen this year, but I could easily see them maybe not completely sweeping, but it is an easier group for them this time around. Egypt, probably the most shocking team that's never made it to the knockouts. I don't think they've even picked up a single win at the World Cup, which is really shocking. Iran, they're right on the doorstep. They've been so close so many times, but just cannot get over the hurdle. And New Zealand made it twice, but have yet to get the first World Cup win. However, in 2010, they managed to get 3 draws and pick up 3 points in the group stage, which is a very, very phenomenal feat on its own, considering who they were grouped with. But anyways, the first game between Belgium and Egypt would go 2-1. It's actually going to be a really tight game. Belgium and Egypt. Iran's gonna pick up a 2-0 victory over New Zealand. Belgium and Iran are actually going to draw. I actually think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. New Zealand and Egypt are also going to draw, but it's going to be scoreless. And then New Zealand's going to get completely blanked by Belgium 4-0. And then Egypt versus Iran. This could easily determine which of the two teams goes to knockouts. However, I think it's going to be a very, very tight 1-1 draw, which means Iran goes to the knockouts for the first time with 5 points. Belgium wins the group with 7. Egypt with 2 points, probably not going, and New Zealand with 1 point, just finishing dead last in their group. So with this, Japan officially is locked into the group. Is officially going to the knockouts. Next up, we have España, otherwise known as Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. Spain's probably the big favorites to win the World Cup this year. The number 1 ranked team in the world going into the tournament. Cape Verde, a debut in the World Cup. Their story is phenomenal. They've managed to beat top their group in Africa. Despite all the backlash, despite all the doubters, they managed to get here. Saudi Arabia made noise by beating the eventual World Cup champion Argentina in 2022. So they can make noise. Uruguay, the first ever World Cup champions, also can make noise at this tournament. First up, Spain versus Cape Verde. I'm sorry, I think Spain's going to repeat what they did to Costa Rica. It's going to be a 7-0 victory. Saudi Arabia versus Uruguay. It's going to be a 2-1 win for Uruguay. Spain versus Saudi Arabia. It's going to be a little tighter, but it's going to be a 3-0 victory. Uruguay versus Cape Verde. It's going to be tight. But it's going to be a 3-1 win for Uruguay. Uruguay versus Spain. It's going to be a 1-0. It's going to be a 2-1 win actually for Spain. And then Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia. You know what? I actually think Cape Verde shocks Saudi Arabia and picks up a first win at the World Cup, which means they, despite all the odds, are actually going to go to the freaking knockouts in their first ever appearance, which is shocking. Which means we have Scotland, Ecuador, Japan, and Cape Verde already locked in for the knockouts from the third place teams. Next up is my opinion of the real group of death in this World Cup. We have France, Senegal, Iraq, and Norway. France, probably my personal take, maybe to win the World Cup. We'll see how things goes. Senegal, the third and final team, African side, to really, really watch out for at this World Cup. They are dangerous. They got robbed of the AFCON title by an email. And I think they should be considered the true AFCON winners. Over Morocco. Iraq played 21 matches to even get here, which is the most, I think, ever. So, Iraq, if anything, are going to have grit and they're not going to be a walkover. And Norway put built ass on everybody in their UEFA qualifying group, which included Italy. Italy. So, this is going to be incredibly tight. So, France versus Senegal is going to be a 1. It's going to be a 3-3 draw. Iraq versus Norway is going to be tight, but I think the Norse pull it out at the end, or the Norwegians pull it out at the very end with a 2-0 win. France versus Iraq is going to also be tight, maybe early on, but I think France take this 1-3-1. Norway versus Senegal is going to be incredibly tight, but I think Senegal does pull this out 2-1. Norway versus France. I think France is going to edge him out 2-1 as well. Senegal versus Iraq is going to be a tight 1-0 win. So despite Iraq picking up 0 points, they're probably going to have the best shot at making noise and really giving a scare to their opponent. France tops the group with 7 points. Senegal finishes second with 7 points, with just 1 less goal differential than France. And Norway with 3 points is going to make it as well. And I believe this eliminates Australia from the group, from the knockouts. Next up, we have Argentina in Group J, along with Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. Oh boy, this definitely is a lot easier for group for Argentina than before, but it's still not going to be a walkover. Argentina are the defending cup champions. They've also won Copa America in 2024. So, they're really tough. Algeria, a very consistent African side, and they could make noise at this cup as well. Austria, a middle of the pack European squad that has definitely made proof their worth. And Jordan, this is their first tournament, so a point here would just be a gift from God from them, or Allah, or whatever the hell the main religion is over there. So first off, Argentina, this game is the first game in Kansas City. Hallelujah. Argentina versus Algeria. I actually think it's going to be a lot closer, but it's going to be a 2-0 win for Argentina. Austria versus Jordan. Austria wins a tight one. It's going to be 1-0. Argentina versus Austria is going to be a 2-1 win. Jordan versus Algeria is going to be a 1-1. And then Jordan gets the world rocked by Argentina with a 5-0 win. And then Algeria versus Austria. This could really determine who goes. But I think Algeria just edges out Austria 2-1. So Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan, in that order, or how this group plays out. Argentina, Algeria are pretty much in, and I'm pretty sure the math puts Austria as well in the knockouts. Group K features Portugal, the DR Congo, Uzbekistan, and Colombia. Portugal. This is probably Ronaldo's final chance at making a World Cup. Final World Cup championship. Can he do it for Portugal and deliver them their first ever World Cup and cementing them as the 9th team to ever win the World Cup? DR Congo is they were one of the 2 teams along with Iraq who had to go through the March qualifiers of the Interconfederation playoffs. So, Uzbekistan are making their World Cup debuts, but they could, ironically, they're probably one of the most mysterious teams in my opinion. And then Colombia, a respected South American power, they can make noise at this tournament as well. First up is Portugal versus the DR Congo. I think it's going to be a tight 2-0 win for Portugal. Uzbekistan versus Colombia is going to be a 3-1 win for Colombia. Portugal versus Uzbekistan, I think it's also going to be tight, but it's going to be a 2-1 win for Uzbekistan. And then Colombia versus DR Congo is actually going to be really tight, but it's going to be 1-0. Colombia versus Portugal is going to be a 1-1 draw, and then DR Congo and Uzbekistan is going to be a 1-1 draw. So that should put it just like Group D. It's going to be Colombia actually topping the. Actually, you know what? Because the scorelines are so similar, I want to say. I know. Like this score is just 1-0 USA. I think Portugal's going to be the more disciplined side. So, and then Uzbekistan and DR Congo. This determines which scoreline I change, just for placement's sake. Even though both teams are out, I actually think the DR Congo's a little more dangerous. I am gonna slightly change the score of Portugal and Uzbekistan to a 3-1 win, just so I can get my placements right. Portugal, Colombia, DR Congo, and Uzbekistan. And then that should eliminate DR Congo from the knockouts. So Group L, this is the final group. This features England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama. England. They have not won it since 1966. It's been they won the Maple Leafs actually won the Stanley Cup more recently than England won a World Cup. That's insanity when you think about it. Croatia made noise when they went to the finals in 2018 before falling to France, so they're definitely a dangerous European side along with England. Ghana has made noise as an African nation in the World Cup, but I think they have fallen off a little bit since their glory days back in the early 2010s. And then Panama, this is their second appearance in the World Cup, still searching for that first win. England versus Croatia. I actually think it's going to be a draw. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. Ghana versus Panama. I think Ghana is going to pull off a very, very gutsy 1-0 win. England versus Ghana. I think it's going to be a 2-1 win for England. Panama versus Croatia. Panama's going to lose 4-1 and then lose 5-1 against England. And then Croatia versus Ghana. Not 21. It's going to be a 2-1 win. So that puts England in first. Croatia second with a 1 goal differential difference, separating England from Ghana. Or not Ghana, Croatia. And then Ghana finishes third. And then Panama finishing last. Ghana with 3 points, I think is going to be enough. So let's see. 1, 2. There is one team that has 2 points. It's going to be enough. So South Korea's out. So Egypt. It's Canada that actually make it through. So we've eliminated South Korea, Australia, Egypt, and the DR Congo. So A, D, G, and K. A, D, G, and K are all out. So if we should go to the knockout rounds. So, give me a second. I'm going to set up something so that I can make sure we have the knockout rounds set. So, we have to move this over to a different site. So, give me a minute, chat. I'll be right back. But I'll still talk to you guys. So, how excited how excited is everyone for the World Cup? I am very, very excited. So hold on while I enter everything into the thing. Let us make a bracket real quick. It's still very, very right. Give me a second, chat. I'm still going through this. Let's see, Belgium, Iran, Egypt. Alrighty, So now I gotta put in my third place teams. So CFHIJ. So we're looking at South Korea, Australia. Let's see. Egypt, Canada, and the Korea Republic. Okay, let me get this back up now. Alrighty, so I've made this bracket challenge now, so I've put in every single of the groups. So here are the group standings that my scorelines predicted. As you can see, Mexico, Czechia, Korea, Republic, South Africa. Group A, Switzerland, Bosnia, Canada, Qatar. Group B, Brazil, Morocco, Scotland, Haiti. Group C, USA, Turkey, Australia, Paraguay. Group D, Cote d'Ivoire, Germany, Ecuador, Curacao. Group E, Netherlands, Tunisia, Japan, Sweden. Group F, Belgium, Iran, Egypt, New Zealand. And Group G, España, Uruguay, Cabo Verde, and Saudi Arabia. And Group H, France, Senegal, Norway, Iraq. And Group I, Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. In Group J, Portugal, Colombia, DR Congo, and Uzbekistan. In Group K, and England, Croatia, Ghana, Panama. Group L, Japan, Ecuador, Austria, Canada, Norway, Scotland, Cabo Verde, and Ghana all make it to the knockouts, with South Korea, Australia, Egypt, and DR Congo just missing out. So with that, let's pick our knockouts. So these are what the bracket look like from top to bottom. We have Ivory Coast versus Scotland, France versus Japan, Czech Republic versus Bosnia, Netherlands versus Morocco, Colombia versus Croatia, Spain versus Algeria, the US and Canada. Oh, Belgium versus Cape Verde, Brazil versus Tunisia, Germany versus Senegal, Mexico versus Ecuador, England versus Norway, Argentina versus Uruguay, Turkey versus Iran, Switzerland versus Austria, and Portugal versus Ghana. So let's pick from top to bottom, starting with the Ivory Coast versus Scotland. I think this is definitely a very, very favorable matchup for the Ivory Coast. I would not be surprised if they made noise here. But and Scotland also could definitely make a run, but I just love the Ivory Coast a little too much. I gotta go with Cote d'Ivoire in the round of 32. Next up, we have France versus Japan. Japan looking to make a little bit more noise, however, and I think they're really gonna give France a scare. However, I think it's too early to knock out France. So let's put France in the round of 16. LA Stadium, I think, is gonna be the Czech Republic versus Bosnia. Two teams that made it through through the European knockouts by beating very powerful teams in their final qualifying game. However, I think Bosnia is just a little too. I think just has the slight edge. The Netherlands versus Morocco. This is tough, and I'm sorry I have to do this, but I think the Netherlands just edge out Morocco in Monterrey Stadium. So give me the Netherlands in this one. Colombia versus Croatia. Oh boy, this is incredibly tough. But I am going to give it to the European power. I'm going to give it to Croatia in this one. Spain versus Algeria. I think Spain definitely is going to make a run in this tournament. US versus Canada. It's in US. I'm sorry, I got to go with the US in this one. Belgium versus Cape Verde. Yeah, Belgium's whipping them apart. Brazil versus Tunisia. I think I gotta give it to Brazil. It's too early to knock them out. Plus, Tunisia. Congrats on getting here, but you're getting your ass handed to. Germany versus Senegal. Germany, I think, is just too good. It's just gonna be a little tough for them to do. Senegal do much. Mexico versus Ecuador. It's in Mexico City. Come on. I gotta give it to Mexico. I love Ecuador, but the Mexican home advantage is just too real. England versus Norway. I think England's gonna make a bit of. I think England's definitely got more juice in them than Norway does, so I'm gonna give it to the English. Argentina versus Uruguay. It's a little too soon to knock out Argentina. Turkey versus Iran. I'm gonna give it to Turkey in this one. Switzerland versus Austria. I'm gonna give it to the Swiss. I think it's too early to knock out the Swiss. And Portugal versus Ghana. I'm giving it to Portugal. I think it's a little too simple. Next, let's go to the round of 16. Ivory Coast versus France. This is my major upset. I'm going Ivory Coast. I really, really love what the Ivory Coast is doing, and they are actually going to make a deep run in this tournament. Bosnia versus Netherlands. I'm going to the Netherlands. I think Bosnia's time is up here. Croatia versus Spain. I think Spain's going to take this one. It's just too simple not to. The US versus Belgium. Now, I know Belgium has been known to kind of crack under pressure, but it is going to be a tough test for the US. However, I think we have what it takes to beat them in the round of 16, so I'm going to go with the US in that one. Brazil versus Germany. I think Germany is just that good this year. I think I'm going to put them through to the quarterfinals at least. Mexico versus England. I'm going to go with Mexico in this one. I think this is the other shocker of the round of 16. I think Mexico does have what it takes to go far. Argentina versus Turkey. I am going to go Argentina in this one. Switzerland versus Portugal. I'm going to go with the Portuguese. And this, oh, we get this in Kansas City. That's going to be epic. But our quarterfinal matchups. Ivory Coast versus the Netherlands. I am going to go with the Netherlands in this one. Spain versus the US. I am going to go with Spain. I think this is where the US run ends. Germany versus Mexico. I'm going Germany in that one. Then Argentina versus Portugal. I'm going Portugal in that one. I think this would be an incredible matchup. I gotta go with the team that desperately wants it more. The Netherlands versus Spain, a former semi-final matchup. I think I am gonna final matchup in 2010. I am gonna go with Spain though. And then the other semi, Germany versus Portugal. I think I gotta go with Portugal in this one. So, and then third place, I'm gonna give it to Germany over the Netherlands. And then the final between Spain and Portugal. Will Ronaldo finally get that World Cup? I think I'm gonna go with Spain. I think they're just that good in this tournament, and I probably would like some other teams to probably go, maybe like a France or an England, but they just run into teams of destiny a little bit too early to really give him a shot. So I gotta go with Spain to take it all. But that is gonna be my final prediction. But what do you guys think? Am I just delirious? Am I just delirious from like being up so late? Or do you think this bracket actually looks really good? Let me know. But that's gonna be it for this stream. Thank you guys so much for watching, even if you probably aren't watching at this point. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to share, turn around and help us grow. What do you guys think of more ASMR stuff like this? Maybe if you're watching in the morning, or if you're just watching to fall asleep. Who knows? If you like this, then I'll definitely do more of ASMR stuff. Probably not of the World Cup such as this, but maybe some stuff on the road. And if you guys want to know how crazy this tournament could be, if you thought the Ivory Coast going to the quarterfinals was crazy, in a simulation I did, they went to the final before finally getting beaten by Brazil. And I think the US also made it to the semis. I don't remember who came out. I think it was Portugal who went to the semis as well and got third. But that would be crazy. A crazy result. And I'd love to see something like that. But with that being said, here's to less than 14 hours from now. We're going to have Mexico versus South Africa to kick off the 2026 FIFA World Cup, the greatest tournament on the planet. See you later, peeps. And thank you for watching. And Shadow also wishes you farewell. Also, sub mail's only